Obviously, the Dawn and Donna thing was not intentional. We met, and it just happened to be his name and my name. And everyone always said, "Oh, isn't that cute?" I guess it's cute. I guess I don't know. That was not intentional either. It was just that our name was Fredericks, which is a long name, so I wanted short names because I didn't want to add any more letters than we had to, so I tried for 4-letter names. I liked the name Kirk for no reason. I just really liked it, Kirk Douglas. So we went with that. And then I don't know where Keith came, but I thought Keith was a nice name. And
I don't know why we named Keith Keith.
What is the most unattractive male first name in the English language?
Keith. So here comes Kyle up, and we ended up with Kyle, and that was definitely after Kyle Rope.
If it keeps on raining,
but she then wanted to change it to Scott, and she did.
Actually, your father went home thinking that Kyle's name was Scott, and when he came back to the hospital, he found out it was named Kyle.
And then when I came to the hospital bed, I was looking for Scott Fredericks, and I couldn't find it. And I said, "What happened to my baby?"
I changed his name from Scott to Kyle Scott. I liked the name Scott, but same thing, I said, oh, I should probably stick with the K.
All I can remember is Donna saying, I'm sitting there, the nurse had to throw me in the room, and I'm sitting next to Donna, and Donna has the child, and she looks down, she's screaming, she says, "It hasn't got a it hasn't got a," which meant that it was a girl, and that's what we were searching for.
Kerry, I wanted to name Danielle. I love that name, but I didn't name her that because I figured that would be wrong to name her with a name other than a short K name. So she got Kerry.
and the water gonna come and I have no place to stay.
The next 2 weeks I went and had my tubes tied.
Well, all last night I sat on the lever and moaned. Well, all last night I sat on the lever and moaned.
It was just fate that, you know, we got married because then I would be the 5th K.
We didn't start dating until our junior year of high school.
Thinking about my baby and my...
And it was in that year that my mom called up Kim and started a conversation with her, asking her if we were being safe. And I didn't realize at the time, I do now, that she didn't give a crap about whether we were safe. She only cared about extending the K naming legacy, and somebody named Kim Kramer was a sign from God, basically, and she was just excited. She probably hoped that Kim got pregnant.
If it keeps on raining.
For a long time, it seemed like Kirk was dating a new girl every single week, and none of them were K names. I mean, so many women, like truckloads of women. It's kind of like Binders Full of Women, only with trucks. And when Christy came along, and it seemed like they were serious, they were going to stay together, it seemed like Kirk was ready to play ball, and all was good with the K naming legacy. And then Kyle had to f it up by marrying Rebecca.
Certainly her last name began with a K, Kidwell, and that did make us and her feel better. I occasionally made jokes that Kidwell started with K, so it was all right, but I know that it really wasn't.
Well, I guess Kyle marrying Rebecca couldn't be helped that he happened to fall in love with someone that didn't have a K name, but her last name was Kidwell, so it seemed okay.
We tried to fix Kyle up with many women, and it never worked out because Kyle's not a very likable person.
You know, I did not really think about the ramifications of having a name that started with R. Rebecca was very hostile when it came to this whole K thing. So I didn't think the K thing was going to be an issue. She definitely had anxiety about it. She would always bring it up. You know, I'm the only one in this family who doesn't have a letter K. It seemed reasonable that there would be some other letters involved eventually, and no reason for R not to be one of them, until Kirk and Christy got together, and then I started to see that there was a pattern that I was troublingly destroying. And then Keith conveniently pointed it out in the wedding toast by trying to rename me Karen.
There was some point, I can't even remember who, in the years before I dated somebody with a K, and I was definitely excited about the possibility. But in the end, it didn't work out, so.
Love is going to break. If it keeps on raining, love is going to break. And all these people.
Years before Kim and I even got married, we had decided on our children. We decided that we were going to have 2 children. They were both going to be girls. They were both going to be named Kaylee and Calissa, which was sort of a funny thing to assume, since there's like a 75% chance that you're not going to have 2 of the same gender. But that's what we were aiming for, but we solidified it on our wedding night. That came out wrong.
Okay, so my favorite part of the K story was that on our wedding night, our videographer had asked us what we were going to name our children, and what do we want to say to our kids 20 years from now if they're watching this video.
The videographer asked us to say a message to our future children, you know, just sort of like this abstract future children idea, but instead of just saying we love you, future children, we actually said we love you, Kaylee and Calissa, by name. Kaylee and Calissa.
If we have 2 girls,
What?
we haven't figured out the guys.
We're both 26 now, so we're gonna have you in a couple years, but Kaylee and Calissa, assuming we're gonna have 2 girls.
And any boys that we may have.
We'll see you then. The origin of Kaylee's name came from a few different places.
I always liked the name Kayla. I think even dating back to high school, I wanted, if I had a girl, I wanted to name her Kayla. And then as it got closer to us having kids, Kayla became like a really popular name. And I just started meeting a lot of Kaylas and decided that I wanted to do a name that wasn't as popular.
I really like the name Haley, and since we were just tacking on K's onto existing names, that's kind of where it came from. It also came from the name Kayliana.
I had gone through the idea of naming her Kayliana, which I think Bobby and Scotty had said sounded like a Hawaiian stripper.
Have no place to stay.
And then we decided to go just Kaylee because Keith said that he didn't want me to name our child Kayliana if I intended to call her Kaylee.
I hadn't seen the name Kaylee in the wild anywhere, really. I thought it was a completely original name, actually, until I saw the TV show Firefly. That was the first time I saw a character in a movie or a TV show named Kaylee, and I hadn't met anybody named Kaylee when we came up with the name. I thought it was completely original, but apparently it became relatively popular after we named her.
And then Calissa was just kind of the joke because we had said that no matter what our kids' names would be, that they had to begin with a K. So, you know, Keith was like, even if her name is Melissa, it has to start with a K. You know, the K could be silent. And then we're like, hey, Calissa, that sounds good.
The origin of Calissa came from Alyssa and Melissa. We just tacked a K onto it. I bet if I asked Christy, which I did not, whether she thought it was a good name, she would have said that it was not a real name at all. But I didn't care. I thought it was a nice name.
It ended up as a Molly and a Reese.
No matter whether Christy liked a K name or not, she was definitely not going to go with the K name.
Christy really wanted to name her kids, you know, go against the grain and name her kids with Molly and Reese.
It was sort of a disappointment when we heard that Christy, out of spite, by the way, was going to not name her kids with a K name.
And we knew that she'd come through with something different, just to be different. And so we were pushing for a divorce. But we did not go there because we felt that they'd probably divorce on their own.
Kirk and I went back and forth, although he didn't really seem to mind if it was a K name or not.
The way I got everything from Christy was, the baby's in me, I make the decisions around here.
My decision was that it had to be a name that I liked.
And every K name I brought up, and I brought up at least 1,000, I was told, no, that's a Jewish name. No, that's an Irish name. No, that's a girl's name. No, that's a boy's name.
I'll be quite honest, we kind of stayed away from the K name.
No, that's a Muslim name.
For a boy, I was never really sure.
I tried names like Kaysen, which was the name of a Red Sox pitcher at the time who happened to be on that same day. I brought the name up, have a no-hitter.
I simply thought that was just Jason with a K.
The baby was in her. She was saying she was making the decisions. And I tried to let her know that the baby wouldn't be in her if it wasn't for, my spray.
The bottom line was I basically just loved the name Molly.
She could have just as easily named them Collie and Keese.
Collie's a dog and Keese just sounds like geese.
Well, what can I say? Reese is as far away from Kay as we can get.
Well, I thought the next best thing to having a name with Kay is once I get over the fact that she had destroyed something our family had established for a while, was I'd get back at her. And so what I did to this day, not many people know this, except for my third period class who I told recently, I named my first child after the girl I had a crush on in 7th grade. Molly Glenn. She was in my science class, and forever and ever I just had a crush on her. So Molly, so every time I go to Town Spa, I think of Molly, my daughter Molly, so that was my way of getting back at her for destroying the K name.
So I had to negotiate with her to get this to happen. I was told that we would be naming our kids things with K's, and that Keith and Kim had done it, and therefore we were going to do it as well. I was fairly confident I could win her over to go with the K names. And when I tried to explain that maybe we could name one with a K and one with an R, and that we could consider our names like Robert or Rhiannon, I'm not saying Rhiannon would have been a good choice, I'm just saying I suggested it. So I will let you pick whatever name it is. I just want the first letter. She could have every other letter there was, but I just wanted the first letter. There was no consideration of Molly and Reese as discussion points whatsoever. Nope, no discussion. I was super nice by letting her pick the names of my children, and I only got one letter, so I see myself as the person that gave in to her rather than her giving in to me about the K names.
Kyle came to me with the idea that I would name my first kid after his ex-girlfriend, and then he would name his kid after my ex-girlfriend. And it's a clever idea, but and maybe I would do it if I remarried, but Kim and I already decided on the names of our two children.
Caitlin, of course, Rebecca picked that name. I did say that changing a regular name to a K name might be stripifying it. And I did struggle with Caitlin with a K versus Caitlin with a C. And then when it came down to us having a boy, we had like 10 girl names, but we didn't have any boy names. In part because Keith and Kim did claim them all for a potential future that never really happened.
That is so not true, first of all. Kaylee was the first one born, so Kaylee was already taken. Maybe he wanted to name Kieran Colby, and I took that one.
So it came down to 2 boy names. That's all we could come up with. And Keegan was on the short list. We were debating over it, and we were debating it when we went out for food, and we went to the Cheesecake Factory in Braintree. And then suddenly, I ordered a beer without even thinking about it, and the beer came. And it was one of those 2 names. I didn't even realize it when I ordered it. And the name of the beer was Kieran. And Rebecca's like, that's one of our 2 names. And that was the moment where we chose Kieran's name because it was the name of a beer that I randomly picked in Cheesecake Factory. I regret every New Englander who pronounces Kieran as Karen. That makes me sad. But I still like the name, and we can call him Kier, and it'll be fine.
I don't know. I think naming your kids traditionally all with a K is kind of cool. But naming your child after a beer, that's irresponsible.
What am I to do?
Just not, there's just not that many names left. You guys have taken them all?
Now look here, mama, what am I to do?
Some bad stories from being a teacher. You know a lot of K names, and you have to cross them off the list once you have somebody who you associate with that name.
I ain't got nobody. Come on, trouble too.
I think that I've either dated them or I have a bad one in school, so.
I works on the ladder, mama both night and day.
I'd like to go with Nana's maiden name for a boy. So it's going to be Nevin, and it's non-negotiable.
Yeah, I think as a compromise, he might just have to take the Fredericks name, and that might suffice, and then we'll just stick with whatever name he actually has. Because, I mean, I'm not obviously changing my name. Come on.
Night and day, I ain't got nobody, keep the water away.
Of course I am. What, do I look like Christy or something? What do I look like? Christy? I'm gonna name my baby Kiffer with a K. Hunter Scott Flanders Fredericks. That's my friend at 3. That's at my kindergarten where I go to school. Mia. Because I've had that name for a while, and Mama kind of likes it, and also, and I've been asking Mama if she had a baby to name it Mia or Kirsten or Kirsty. I don't think she likes people with K names. Mommy is crazy.
No, I was thinking of naming my kids Julia and Toby. Because frankly, this K naming thing is getting ridiculous. Okay, on the other hand, maybe naming my kids without a K is gonna be a little bit crazy. Yeah, I think so. So I guess I'll name my kids Cooley and Kobe.
Biggest joke, that he loves to say for everything is, if, we want to find out whose water it is, he's like, oh, just put KF on it.
And he actually said something about us having kids and their names did not start with K, and he came up with those names. I'm just saying.
You really can't believe most things that she says. Her memory is very poor due to all the intoxication and whatnot.
I have nothing else to add.
It won't do no good.